Hello, I'm Ren, X-Men Cardadex, or Connor, and welcome back to Paintober. This is day 20. We are painting up the Crimson Clergy. I have a few things I can read off here because they have some lore that is not secret, luckily. Thank God. So, the Crimson Clergy are undead cultists, often created, led, and taught by a more powerful vampire. Crimson Clergy view the consumption of blood and in its use during their rituals and when casting spells not only is necessary, but sacred. Their hunger reaches beyond the limits of their fangs and claws, calling to the blood of their victims and drawing it out in scarlet ribbons. Anyways, these guys are kind of cool. I do quite a few things with them, but I think the actual next guy, the big guy from this set, is definitely the one that turns out the best out of all of them, because I don't know, I just didn't really paint up these little monk dudes up too much, and I was a little bit sad about that. I felt like I could have done a better job, but I just didn't have I just never have the cloth coloring for them, really, but luckily, they do have some really good concept. Well, the actual art of them are very good, so I'm happy to be able to base my models off of those. So yeah, I think I'm using Xandri Dust for the cloak here, for their little monk robes, which is very good, and it will give them a nice, like, kind of tan look. And I do shade that down later down the line with some, I believe, Agrax, Nuln Oil, and Blood for the Blood God, because on the concept art they have little stains of blood on their clothes and the cloaks that they are dragging behind them. So I figured might as well throw that in there because I like that. Being vampires, they do have most of the abilities of vampirism, which is an interesting thing to read through. There's some of these I'm not going to read out because they are secrets, but the models themselves are cool. The actual things they have written for the models are very cool as well. And let's see, is there one thing I can throw out there for them that's not too spoilery before I just get to talking about painting stuff? They can climb. I think that's a interesting thing, I guess. Climb speed of 30 feet. That's pretty ballsy for a vampire to have, just be able to climb out of anywhere. That's crazy. Okay, we can close that now. I can focus now on the painting. So, we have painted the Xandri Dush, as well as the Celestra Gray, I believe it is. I think I'm using Corn Red for all these little red bits because my Screamer Pink has run its course. God rest its soul. I've had it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years plus. And it has served me quite well. And it's always a nice color. That little kind of like it's a good pinkish red has always been a very good color, but it is dissipated as time goes on. I'm just throwing a little bit of Mechanica Standard Gray on some of these tiles to kind of drop them into a little bit different of a look, which is important to set the models into a bit of a new perspective, I guess, which is kind of neat. I do a pattern later down the line that makes it not so, oh, it's just gray sort of look, so I'm excited for whenever we get to see that. You get a little bit more of a, oh, this is stone, and this is kind of like a limestone that they mixed in with it. That's kind of interesting. That looks cool. So right here, I am doing a little bit of Agrax Earthshade. I watered it down a slight bit so that way it kind of runs in. I didn't want to dirty them up too much, at least on the top half, because I feel that they are too, like, as a, I don't know, clergy, I guess, in a way, I feel as though they would still keep somewhat clean, although the concept art was that they were very, very dirty. So obviously, I did have to do a little bit of that as well. Don't get me wrong. And here I'm just adding a little bit of Blood for the Blood God on the mouths, and I'm doing a slight drip from the mouths as if they had recently fed. Because I thought that looked kind of neat. It looked kind of interesting to me, so and a little bit on the sleeves. I threw a little bit on the hands just to make them seem like, oh man, they got somebody. And I know I just said, oh man, they'd probably keep pretty clean. At least the top half where blood wouldn't be is pretty clean, but everywhere else is fair game. Fair game for that red to flow. Throw a little bit on the feet. As I said, I put a little bit on the bottom of the cloak, trailing behind them as if they had maybe walked through a area with a pool that, was just there, or something along those lines that has really kind of soaked into their robes, that blood from so long ago. But yeah, they do look pretty freaking neat. I kind of like how it turns out here. Painted a little bit more of that blood for the blood god, really just soaking it in. Here I grab a little bit of, I believe that's Uriel yellow, and I dot those into the eyes, so that way they have kind of that almost nightmarish, similar to cats, where you shine a small bit of light and they just dart back at you. I like how that looks. I like how cats can just, perceive in the dark. That's why most of my D&D characters have dark vision, because I just love being able to see in the dark and not have to worry about it. But also I've come to a realization of I also like consumables in games, and I've wanted to start using them more. So I believe this is some lead belcher on a lot more little pieces here I wanted to show off. Because I decided this whole little front piece has some filigree on it, and it would look a little bit cooler if it shined. Which it kind of does. I mean, you're going to see a lot of that sort of stuff for the dude next episode. You can see him. He's all dark and mysterious there. He's going to be terrifying. I can't wait to put him on a board and have people literally pee their pants because of how strong he's going to be. Here's a little bit of that Null Noil on the bases, kind of setting them into... And I don't really do much with them. I mean, if the models weren't, already attached to the bases, I probably would have done some fancy stuff of dry brushing, but it's okay, I guess. We'll just, they get to be as is. I believe this is a highlight for the models, yes. I actually had shown these to my siblings, and I was like, I think I'm finished with them. And I was like, but I could do a highlight. And they're like, just do the highlight. So that's what I wound up doing here, is I kind of made it a little bit nicer on that front. As I said, everywhere but the front's going to be a lot cleaner. So that's the fun part. I did have to work out this day, so I wanted to get these guys finished as quickly as possible. I believe in total these 3 models took me maybe an hour, which is probably some of the fastest models I've ever painted, but they're very basic. They only have a few colors attached to them. Oh, look at how nice that highlight turned out. I've never actually been able to properly see some of those, but I think I made sure I moved my camera and everything to where I was really reaching to get them there. Kind of fancy little homie. Here I'm adding a little bit of highlights onto the actual skin color of the vampire boy. Oh, he's so beautiful. Oh, how fancy. How fancy this little guy. Look at I never realized this while I was painting them, but I saw it while I was editing the video. But their noses are like bat noses, which they have the little snubbies, and I was like, that's cool. That's cool to see. I don't know. I didn't see that before. So it was just one of those oh, that's really interesting. And I only do a single highlight on these guys. I don't bother going through with a lighter and lighter paint, only because these are just little grunts. These are just normal dudes. I know for anything if it was a little Tau guy, I would have done more, but these guys, they're just this is equivalent to a little plague warrior, he's not, you don't really have to add too much detail to him. He's just a guy that's going to fill space. Man, look at him. Look at that guy. Each one of them, you can see the base is slightly different from the last, and every one of them has a slight tinge different with them. But yeah, the overall, not bad at all. But I've been Ren, Explain Card Decks, or Connor. These have been the Crimson Clergy. And I'll see you in tomorrow's videos, or whatever is next. Take care.